In this lessons episode, discover how venture investors can avoid founder misalignment by doing deep personal due diligence before writing a check. Learn why surrounding first-time CEOs with strong co-founders and advisors helps guide growth. Learn how ego and peer advice can mislead new founders, and learn why filtering feedback and building intuition through experience is key to long-term success. In a situation like that, is there something that you could do to, or that you try and do to help the founder CEOs align on the same vision, like realign? Because from every person that I've spoken to who does venture investing, the individual is the most important component. Like, yes, the market can shift, but the individual is the X factor. Like, if that person goes rogue, you're done. So what are the, as let's talk to investors in the audience. Say they put money into an early stage company. What can you do in that case? Is there strategy? Is there tactic, or is that write off?
Yeah, I think so. The first thing is that do as much work as you possibly can before you write the check. And I really mean this with this is why I'm not a fan of, these party rounds that happen over the weekend and everybody's writing a $300K check and then nobody shows up for work, right? So, because there's no ownership to the project, right?
Yeah.
The founders raised, $4 million, but everybody's put in $200K. Like, okay. And then there's no, nobody to challenge your ideas or give you new ones. And it's a very lonely place to be. So if I was advising, entrepreneurs, I would say, don't do that, right? Investors, which is the question you asked, I think I now have a much more rigorous process on understanding the individual behind the CEO, right? Like, what is this person all about? And doing blind references and other calls. Now, one of the benefits we have as a 40-year plus venture capital firm is we're one call away for almost any entrepreneur to find out, what are they all about? Because, we've got such a massive network, right? So unless you're a UFO, one of these kids from college that doesn't have a history in the Valley, if you've done 5, 7, 10 years of work in the Valley, we know one person that, will give you.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of work in advance. I also spend a lot of time with them, sort of off cycle, taking them out for dinner, go for a walk before we write the check. This is really to unpack the person behind the person. But I think having said all that, things can still go wrong because people are people. And so the answer to that is for the listeners that are investors is surround them with a highly skilled set of either co-founders or advisors early on. And I think because, CEOs tend to learn by osmosis, the best of them. They have a learning mindset. And a great example of this is one of my favorite CEOs, Maya Din Reddy, who's running now a very, very large company. I invest in this company based in Philly. It's a company called Phenom in the HR tech space. And just a rocket ship company, profitable, while, all the other competitors have burnt and Scott incinerated hundreds of billions of dollars of cash here in the Valley. This guy's kind of, raised less money than the ARR that he's putting onto, on his top line every year right now. Just a phenomenal company. And the big thing that I respect about Maya is that he's surrounded himself with, he's always seeking out that next great idea from the next great person, right? So the job of the early stage entrepreneur is giving capital, doing all your work before you write the check, as much as you can. But things can still go wrong. And then surrounding the CEO with what I'd call experts or people that can really give them sort of additional ideas once you've identified what their soft spot might be. So one of early stage CEOs happens to be this phenomenal founder from PayPal, technical guy, had to learn go to market on the job, right? So I've inserted this guy whose company I've invested in that, worked at a very, very great company on the GTM side called Act Dynamics. And that person is now advising Suresh, who's the CEO in question, at this company I've done called Sadai, on GTM. So again, that's a great, sort of a fit. And he's learning a lot from them. And I think that brings down the risk of these founders going, off the trip.
I think that's very wise. I also think that it's sometimes uncomfortable for a first-time founder to ask for help.
Yeah. And
understanding that there's like a mental block there for them to put them in that a little bit of a position of I'm sort of saying I don't know what I don't know and please, like, I want the advice. But I think there's an ego involved in that too, that a lot of people have a tough time asking for help. So if you're putting those people around them, it's just a very great environment that's going to allow that person to thrive.
The other thing, and you remind me of something, Scott, when you said that. The other thing I've kind of noticed is that these founders talk to other peers and get quote unquote advice and lock into that advice, which might be different, maybe by a few degrees, sometimes completely opposite to the way I would advise them on that particular point. So I've been thinking about that because, one of my CEOs does a lot of this, where he'll go and talk to another CEO who's 28 and try to get advice on fundraising or timing of fundraising and so on and so forth. And I'm like, that guy, person, gal is not giving you the right advice, right? So the point here is not that don't talk to your peers, you should, but filter what you're getting based on the experience that somebody has, right? Because it's more likely, I'm not saying I'm always right, it's more likely that somebody that's gone down a path that has a perspective and does this professionally, he'll probably give you better advice than your buddy you're having a beer with, right? Yeah.
And sometimes I've actually found this a lot, and I think that it's also very damaging. So if somebody achieves some early success and they haven't been in the game long enough to understand that their early success is not the way that they achieve their early success is not the only way to achieve success, they become almost like there's like a religious conviction about how they achieve success, and that's the only way to do it, and that's the only advice they give, and they speak with such conviction and such charisma that the recipient of that advice starts to believe that, yeah, that must be the only way to do it, or that must be the only way to operate through this specific. And they're only like, they're 25, 26, and they're giving this advice that served them well for the first, 4 years of their life, but they don't realize that multiple things can be true at the same time, and that what worked in one industry or one instance, it doesn't always carry over, and there's this bias towards this, their short-lived experience. And I think that's also damaging. Yeah. And that you probably get that from peers.
And the balancing comment is, right, this is not a age thing or an experience thing, right? Because I think that I met 22-year-old that are very, very insightful, and they have a different set of experiences. So I think the point I think we're both trying to make is, as a first-time founder, understand the source, put a filter on top of it, okay? Figure out, based on a lot of life is all about having gut instincts, right? So when you've had enough reps, you just know, right? And so they need to get enough reps. And, if you're taking feedback from founders, go talk to 10, not one. If you're trying to get feedback on a particular point from like tenured VCs or whatever, talk to 5, not one, right? And then you balance it and you'll get the right, and then it'll apply our own intuition. So, just kind of having one conversation over a cocktail doesn't make a strategy.
Thanks for tuning in. If you found this valuable, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you want to dive deeper into this conversation, check out the links in the description to watch the full episode. See you in the next one.